Coming up, it's live from my office, right after a word from the great Woody the Wizard, Woody Woodring, the boss, the man, the dude from Woody Buick. Whether you're in Naperville or Gurnee, do what I do. Buy your next car, new or used, from Woody Buick. And now in 10 seconds, Woody, through the magic of his own voice, will entice you to do the right thing and come by and see him and his great staff before you move on any car or truck. Woody, take it away.
Woody here, Woody Buick GMC, Naperville and Gurnee, Chicagoland's largest selection of GMC Sierras, Yukons, and Acadias. Search Woody Buick GMC, Naperville, Gurnee, and see for yourself. Hope to see you soon, Woody. GMC, we are professional grade.
Hey, it's Steve Cochran live from my car because I'm always busy. I'm running around. I got a lot to do. The radio business isn't what it used to be, so I've moved on to many other things with an exciting new digital project about to be announced. Before we get to any of that, though, let's talk about the podcast. Live from my office, 500 plus episodes. I've talked to a lot of cool people. None cooler than the guy you're going to hear today. More on that in just a moment. In addition to that, got ourselves a brand new stand-up comedy show coming up. Why don't I tell you about that? Mike Toomey, the hilarious Mike Toomey, one of the best stand-ups in the country. You see him every morning on WGN TV News, the morning news, the number one rated television show in the morning in Chicago. Mike Toomey there, prominently featured. Frankly, they ought to prominently feature him some more. And does he announcing at 9 o'clock on camera? Hey, just a funny dude, and he's a good dude. He's been a friend forever. And he's one of the great stand-ups, and I'm not even remotely exaggerating. You're going to want to come out and see Mike Toomey, the hilarious Tim Benker, and the often funny me, live on stage at the Bolingbrook Golf Club. I know what you're thinking, Steve. How do I get tickets? Well, that's simple. You go to the show notes, and you'll see the poster for the show. There's a QR code there. Just click and scan that QR code. You know what? We'll put the link there to you. You could click on the link, or you could scan the QR code. And when you do, you'll get right to the page to get your tickets for Chicago comedy legends, dare I say. Live at the Bolingbrook Golf Club, Thursday night, June 11th. Early show, 7 o'clock. You'll be fine. You'll be home in bed by 10. Again, it's Mike Toomey, Tim Benker, and me, the Chicago comedy legends, live at the Bolingbrook Golf Club. Come on out. Tickets are beyond reasonable. Frankly, we priced them too cheaply. And I look forward to seeing you there. Big fun, big laughs, and we all need those. All right, on today's Live from my office, sponsored by Woody Buick and our good friends at Apt Electronics. I like to stay busy, and I do stay busy. That's why so often you're seeing me do these ins and outs, as we call them, for these podcasts, live from my car. I'm too busy to sit in my own studio. And I don't even make a blip on the Energizer Bunny for Busy's radar screen. I'm talking about Howard Tullman. Howard Tullman and Mayor Rahm Emanuel started the best tech startup incubator in the world in Chicago not that long ago. Howard Tullman had a concept for what amounts to the equivalent of a trade school, but it was for kids who wanted to learn how to game and learn how to code. Partnered with Robert De Niro. He tells a story in this episode, and that may well be the next evolution of higher education because of AI. Oh yeah, we talk AI here as well. In addition to that, he's got the thing that he's very excited about, and the thing he's talking about, I think he's been kind enough to include me in on. It's called Selfie. And at Selfie is a place you go to develop your own AIU. AIU. And you'll be able to, it's better if Howard explains it to you coming up. And you can check in with me as well at selfie.com. All right, so that's a snapshot of what's coming up. I mentioned one of our sponsors is Apt Electronics. And we've got a phrase we throw out for most of these episodes, and you can win yourself a $50 gift card to Apt. Apt also, by the way, sponsoring the stand-up comedy show I mentioned before, where they're kind enough to give us a 75-inch big old TV to give away to somebody at the show that night. Why not you? Why not you? Are you too much of a winner? Have you won too many things? I think you should win a brand new TV from Apt. Right now, though, let's give away those gift cards. Here's this week's phrase, and I think you know the drill. If you're a regular listener, you simply send me an email to thecochranshow at gmail.com with the phrase that I identify, and I'll do it right now. Put the phrase in, put your mailing address in, your snail mail address in, and I will send you an apt gift card. While supplies last, as many as we can get out in any given week. All right, here's the phrase. Hey, Steve, are those sunglasses new? Hey, Steve, are those sunglasses new? Send that along with your mailing address to me, Steve Cochran, at thecochranshow at gmail.com. That's thecochranshow at gmail.com. All right, let's get after a very interesting conversation with Howard Tullman, a genius. I don't throw that word around much because I don't know that many geniuses. I know a lot of people who think they're geniuses. Howard is really a fascinating guy, and I think you'll agree after you listen to this. Howard Tullman's a guest, and this is Live from My Office. I have told this man time and time again he's the most interesting man in the world, and I don't mean the beer guy. I mean my friend Howard Tullman, who I've known for a long time. You have no idea how many different things Howard is into and involved in and continues to be passionate about. So I want to start, Howard, if you don't mind, with, I think, your newest passion. I didn't think there was any new way to do social media. I didn't think there was any new way to do technology and social media, and I believe you've come up with it. So explain what selfie is.
Well, let me start by saying that you think of it as new, but we tried selfie more than 12 years ago when we got the trademark for the word. And one of the most astonishing things is to give you an idea of the power of the internet. Selfie is the only word in the history of man, not God, not love, nothing else, but selfie is the same word in every language in the world. And the reason is that it blew up so quickly that these other countries and cultures didn't have time to think up or make up a word in their own language.
So how cool is that?
Yeah, so they adopted the word selfie. So we own the trademark on the word, and frankly, the last few years, there's been a lot of attention developing around what I would call digital twinning, this idea that you would create a digital version of yourself. At the high end, which I would say is the business end, is all this talk about agents, and you'll have somebody who will go out and do all your work for you. That'll be your digital agent. We're not interested in that. We're interested in it as a social enterprise where you will create by taking your own content, your own writing, your own videos, your own social media feeds, all with just one touch of a button. That adds to a base, and that informs the intelligence of your digital selfie, your selfie.
And that you set me to do, and I'm at the basement level here as I'm learning as I go.
Sure.
But more importantly, the machine's learning as it goes. And it's very cool. And I could see 1,000 permutations to this. What are you most excited about?
Well, I'm most excited because, we have to educate kids these days. And when kids say that the most boring place they go is school, I just about throw up.
Right.
But this is a way of educating kids sort of sugar-coated. And what I'm saying is, in essence, we've built a system where they understand, much like gaming, you lose 80% of the time when you're playing a game, but you don't quit. You keep going to try and achieve. We haven't figured out how to do that in education. So as an aside, what this does is it says to a kid, you want to make your selfie smarter, watch what it's doing, add instructions, edit what it's saying, make it grow smarter. And guess what we're teaching them? Prompting, which is a skill that everyone in the world is going to need going forward because we're going to have to learn how to talk to these machines. We're teaching them iteration, which is the singly most powerful thing in the whole world, which is keep doing it over and over and get a little better. I call it, successive approximation as opposed to postponed perfection. So we're teaching them this whole manner of operating. And 40 years ago, I guess it was, a guy named Seymour Papert, I think he was at Harvard or one of those schools, was teaching programming to kids in the same way with a turtle. And it was turtle logic. And if you wanted the turtle to go in a square, you'd have to create 3 instructions or 4 instructions. Turtle, go north 5 steps, turtle, go right and go, And what the kids were learning was that group of 5 or 6 instructions was a program, lo and behold. Okay, so I'm most excited about this as a tool for introducing, and by the way, seniors, whole nother thing. Keeps your mind active, lets you impart your wisdom into sort of a legacy, situation where you can pass on knowledge to your business associates. If you're in a family office, you can pass it on to your relatives or your kids or your grandkids. All of that is possible through this very simple situation, which is it does learn, and it learns because you take the time to teach it and instruct it. Uh, and you can do as much or as little as you want. Literally, you can sign up in 1 minute. You press a couple of buttons for whatever social feeds you have. So you might press the Facebook button, you might press the Instagram button. It'll grab all that stuff and add it into your personal we call it intelligence. It's really your database of your information.
Right.
Uh, so for Pastor Chris Harris, for example, what we're doing is taking 20 or 30 of his sermons. Now he does it in video. We've got another couple of folks who do it by writing out their sermons, putting that all in. And honest to God, this thing is already starting to talk. You could not differentiate it from Chris doing the same exact thing. And by the way, there's a company in Chicago called 11 Labs, and it's learned how to have your text turn into your voice. So not only will this thing talk, but it'll talk in a voice that sounds exactly like your voice.
It's got there's a million things to unpack there, but let me go backwards to the education part first, because I like the idea that you're teaching kids to learn, teaching them to eat their vegetables while they're doing it, because when the kids have to input information about themselves or about things they're interested in, they're learning whether they want to know that or not. So
Yeah.
that's super
Well,
smart.
yeah, and they're also, by the way, learning how to edit and how to streamline this stuff because nobody's interested in reading 3 paragraphs. They want you to get to the substance, to the meat of whatever the conversation is, whatever the point is. And the selfies respond very briefly by and large. They don't write treatises, but by virtue of being short and succinct, they encourage a back and forth conversation. And again, this isn't like social media in general, where you just put something out there and then maybe people comment on it or react to it. This is something that is feeding right back to you and asking you further questions and more, it's obtaining more information from you.
The other interesting thing right out of the gate is the seniors part of this. I literally 20 minutes before we started talking, um, this morning, it's this morning when we're recording this. I know it could be anytime for you, but there was a huge piece that came out about fighting off dementia. And now, again and again and again, one of the key components is as you age, is to keep your mind active. And I think about my grandmother who died at 101, who each day would get up and she would write the weather forecast out and she'd read it back to herself. And the next day she'd go back and look at it again. And she had all these little tricks, play games with herself or whatever,
Sure,
handwrite.
sure.
But she lived to be 101 and she was
Yeah.
very there. So this is a medical tool that you've created as well.
Yeah, and it's a way of sharing. I mean, it's a way of, a lot of these folks are isolated.
Yep.
They're living alone. All of a sudden, with a flick of a button, we could connect them to hundreds of people. And again, we're talking to congregations and churches and things like that. I mean, another thing we learned from Pastor Harris was his congregants don't even know each other very well. And so this
Right.
is a way of bringing communities together. They can have common discussions. They can have essentially group chats. But in the meantime, their selfies are talking all the time. So they can get involved, but it's very interesting that these selfies can have their own conversations and as they each get smarter, they raise some interesting questions. I mean, this is going to turn out to be a social research tool
Right.
because people from the outside are going to look in and look at these conversations and say, here's where that thought or that philosophy or that anger or whatever it is grew from this group.
So the other thing is when you and I were growing up, the drop-in was a regular thing, whether it was you as a kid or me as a kid. Any given time of the day, you could have relatives stop by, neighbors would stop by, whatever. Nobody does that anymore.
Yes.
Nobody pops in.
It's funny, Sebastian Maniscalco or whatever his name is has a
Maniscalco,
whole
yeah.
yeah, he's got a whole piece on company, he calls it. In the
Yeah.
old days, your mom set aside an Entenmann's, and when you had coffee, everybody dropped
Right.
everything, and she had some Nescafe or some Sanka. He said, by the way, the kids in your audience probably think that's an Apple,
Right.
application, something for their phone. But he said now, everybody is hiding out, and it's, oh my God, the door is ringing. It can't be good news if
You're
somebody's
right.
stopping
We
by.
actually have a camera to keep you from coming over.
Exactly, exactly. So yeah, so this is another way of creating a social environment, and I think that that's going to turn out to be powerful. There are Lisa Dent just interviewed a guy who has some organization called Our City, Our Block, or something like that, and his whole focus is if you connect neighbors to neighbors, they start looking out for each other, they start
Exactly.
looking out for their community, and this is, as you said, there's a lot of ways that this can go. I mean, some of the athletes that are using this strategy understand that there's no way they can have a personal connection to tens of thousands of their fans, but they can put one of these things up and their fans can ask questions and it can answer. And it does a pretty good job because, they invest enough time in building the back end that those fans get a personalized answer, and yeah, it's a robot, it's a whatever it is, but the truth is it's the only way that they can figure out how they could possibly deal with the volume of fans or the volume of people.
Well, the interesting thing too I don't know how many people have played around enough with AI to get a sense of what AI is. But if you take the major AI players from Gemini to Chat, Grok, the other big three or four or five, the thing, and just to take Gemini for example, the thing that catches you immediately is you could lose yourself in the fact that you're actually talking to someone because the
Yeah.
conversational software is such that it feels like a conversation.
Well,
This to
and
me,
and by the way, it's generally supportive. Not
yeah, very
putting
much
us
so.
putting aside the suicide issue, the big LLMs are generally tuned to be supportive and to be collaborative and to be rewarding you for virtually whatever you're saying or thinking because that keeps you in the loop. Now, one other distinction that's really important here and is the difference between selfie and these other giants is that the other giants can lead you down plenty of paths that are plenty ugly.
Yeah,
Your selfie is controlled completely by the stuff you put into it. Okay. So
right.
your selfie is not going to go crazy. It's not going to turn into a racist. It's not going to do all these things. It's going to be representative of you. And by the way, the more you put into it, the more accurate that representation will be.
I think too, in a time that we live in a time where kids, and we hear this all the time about kids and people in the 20s are lonely. They're lonelier than they've ever been.
Yeah,
This
for
is a
sure.
way to this is a way to connect with others and show yourself off if you're an introvert or you're shy or you're someone that's not socially active, whatever that means anymore. I think there's a lot of positives here, a lot of positives. So you were in an elevator and it stopped for a second, and I said, "Give me the 2 minute tutorial here." People go where first
You go to selfie.co, um, and that opens a screen that says you can start creating your selfie for free, and all we ask you for is your email address. It doesn't have to be your only email address, an email address and a photo to create your profile. Uh, and then you're done with that. You press the button, it goes to the next page. The next page gives you the top 15 or so social media feeds. So you'll see Facebook, Instagram, all those things. You just click any of those buttons that you want to add to your story or your voice, and each one opens up, and you put in what people would put in to get to you. In other words, the URL for your Facebook, for your Instagram. Press the button, and it goes out and it grabs everything that's on your Facebook or everything that's on your
wow.
Instagram and adds it to the background. And then you're done. Then it says, give me 2 minutes or a minute, and I'll build your profile. And the next thing that literally comes back is the front page of of the selfie universe. And there's you, and it's suggesting to you the first post. It's saying, I would propose to say this in your in your voice, and you can decide you like it, or you can say try again. So it's already going to start this loop of seeing how well it's doing. That's one channel. That's you as an actor. And then the second channel is every 5 minutes or so. It's going to post something based on what it decides is important. And part three, it's going to start watching other posts. And so this was funny because I think I sent you that thing where you commented on
Right.
some stuff that Lisa Dent's selfie was talking about, and uh, Rick Cogan's selfie was talking about. And so the selfies do watch what other people are saying and comment on that, and also say whether they like it or not. And that's all part of this ongoing thing, 24/7. And you can sit back and watch, or you can actually get involved with the whole process. I think that kids are going to start to say, I could say that better. I could say that differently.
Right.
I'd like to edit that, have that whole function. And they're also going to say, I'm going to add a bunch of stuff. I mean, I wrote these 3 papers, or I did this or that. Uh, and watching this thing become closer and closer to the way you might speak or what you might say is, it's a little bit addictive. I mean, I find it to be
It
very,
absolutely is.
yeah, yeah. So,
And when you get in, you have the
by the way, it's
ability
free.
to.
By the way, all that I described is free, just to be clear. You
Well,
can
the
have
next question is, how do you, not that you need the money, but how do you make any money with that then?
Well, I think right now that as I said to you, there's this environment is going to be very interesting as a social research tool and as a variety of other things. But, right now you're connected to a level A back end, a smart back end, but every week the back ends get smarter. As every week Gemini announces a new version or whatever. So one path will be an upgrade fashion. So one path will say, I have 2 selfies now. That's the basic. You can have one for business and one for personal selfies
Okay.
if you want. If you want 5 selfies for like other family members, that there's a charge for that. If you want
Okay.
10 selfies, there's a charge for that. So that's one. Two is you can have a more powerful engine behind it. So you can have the latest version of ChatGPT 5.5 or
Sure.
Claude 5.5. And three, you can take it out of our universe and you can go put it on your website. And what that means is that Pastor Harris can now put on his own website his selfie. So now he's got a button on his website that says, Ask Chris anything. Or ask the Cubs, we ask the Cubs. And I'm thinking, I was talking to Tom Ricketts last night at the game, and I'm thinking literally that each Cub player, take about
Right.
5 minutes to do this, could have their own selfie. And it would be amazing to watch the Cubs selfies talk to each other and for the fans to get into that loop and everything else. So there are a lot of different ways that this can expand. But moving it to your own site is, again, that's sort of an enterprise level use, and there would be a fee associated with that. And then
So, in
yeah,
addition to everything we've talked about already, in the fact that it does learn and you help it learn and you learn the process as well. So it's a circle and you're completing the loop. The legacy piece for older folks, I think, is really important too, because there's a discussion in my family. My wife's oldest brother, he got very into some of this family tree stuff.
yeah,
That
yeah.
that
Legacy,
was it.
legacy.
Yeah, legacy and others, and
Yeah,
he found all these various things, and he was kind of annoyed that the nephews, nieces, grandchildren weren't into it. And the
right,
point I made to him was, well, they're not into it now,
right.
but what you're doing is a gift that pays forward.
Absolutely.
So what
Look,
you're
we're
talking
seeing
about, what it
this.
sounds like you're talking about a selfie, is you can create your family legacy.
Yeah, we're seeing this in the context of family offices where dad or grandpa is getting ready to retire. He's going to turn over these assets to the kids to manage. He would love to archive his thought processes, what he's learned over the years, all of this stuff that he can put into his selfie. And in 10 years from now, they can ask dad or grandpa from the grave, loosely speaking, to answer a question, to give an opinion on a situation, to read a business plan,
How about that?
all of which you can do, and come back with a summary of 2 pages and say, if it were me, I do this deal, or I wouldn't do this deal, or I would change this deal in this respect. I mean, this is how powerful these things are already, and it's only going to get more so. To tell you the truth, it's amazing.
Let's talk about you, the most interesting man in the world in general, for a second here. Because along with selfie, and I fully encourage you folks to jump in on this, and we'll remind you how again coming up. You've written a few of these.
Yep, yep.
Words of Wisdom is here. I love the title of this. You can't win a race with your mouth. These two giant books encompass just a fraction of your knowledge of business. But one of the things I don't think you talk about enough, and we probably haven't talked about much, is your understanding of people. Because where we connected initially, were all my years on WGN, I heard about this guy who was not so enamored with the 4-year college model and getting into $500,000 in debt and coming out with maybe you have a job, maybe you don't. And he developed a 2-year tech school for kids who knew they wanted to get into tech. Maybe they wanted to game, maybe they wanted to write code, whatever it was in the moment. And you developed this school. Isn't that where universities are going to have to go? And are we going to see that as the new junior college?
Well, we'll see. We're going to see once and for all that people are going to understand that the stigma associated with vocational education is old news and it's going away because you could start with a car mechanic who's going to make 150 grand a year, who's going to spend more time with a computer than a wrench,
Yep.
and who is going to go home at 5 o'clock with no hangover of grief and stress and everything else and have a pretty good path to a middle class income. And that's a 2-year thing, if it's even 2 years of training, because all the manufacturers now are building their own workforces for exactly that. But the thing about Flashpoint was so interesting was everybody knew a neighbor who said, my kid's in the basement now, and he doesn't want to go to college at all. He wants to play games or he wants to design animation or stuff like that. And when these kids were exposed to Flashpoint, all of a sudden they like got religion. They were like, I gotta show up. We didn't call it algebra, we called it budgeting your movie. We didn't call it English, it was writing your script, you know, and it was converting it into something that these kids could connect to and take some accountability and responsibility for. So kids whose parents, these parents thought they died and went to heaven. Their kid was getting up, getting dressed, being responsible,
Have
going to
purpose.
school, had a purpose, exactly, and a team, right? They weren't that this was one of the amazing ways we got around that issue of all these single men living in their basements and stuff and having no connection. So all of that worked pretty well and turned out these kids, and believe me, they fed into couldn't have been a better time in their lives than the advent of web pages, the advent of
Sure.
all of this stuff. I mean, all of a sudden, a 22-year-old kid could do a better job of building you a website than a 50-year-old person who had been at an ad
Right.
agency for a zillion years. And so they found jobs, they found employment, they found purpose, as you said. And it was great. And it was, I'll tell you a people story though. So it started out as Flashpoint and we attracted plenty of kids, but we could never penetrate the North Shore. Okay.
And for
And the
people
reason
not watching in Chicago or listening in Chicago, the North Shore is literally the North Shore of Lake
right,
Michigan as it
right.
borders the Chicago area. It's
It's
economically
the it's an
advantaged.
it's the affluent upscale
Exactly.
neighborhoods and parents. And so we never could penetrate it because they weren't going to admit to their neighbors or their friends that their kid was going to a vocational school, whatever you wanted to say about it. So I made a deal with Bob De Niro and we changed the name to Tribeca
Right.
Flashpoint Academy. And lo and behold, that broke down the dam because these parents could now say, my kid's going to Bob De Niro's film school, okay, instead of going to a vocational
Right.
college.
Right.
And they were in heaven. I mean, they thought that was the greatest thing in the world. So turned out to be a very nice example of sort of branding.
So why aren't these universities coming to you? Not that this is your central business at all, because you got 20 or 30 businesses, but why aren't these colleges coming to you and saying, we're behind the 8 ball here. We're so far behind on this. We don't have an idea how to teach AI. We don't have it. how do we import this? How do we get this as fast as possible into the curriculum of Big Ten schools, of Ivies, whatever?
You know, I don't think they can. I don't think they can. I think that they're so stuck with tenure, with a staff that's in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, with an administration that's three times the size of the teaching faculty. I think these are going to come from uh, more likely from the business sector saying we have to be responsible for training the workforce of the future. And the major businesses will set up training facilities, and they may actually pay these kids to come work for them. And the first work they'll do is a year or two of essentially training. Because I talk to corporate leaders all the time, and they tell me that kids graduating from college can't read or write or spell. And this is they say that they spend the first year remediating basic skills in order for these kids to be functional. Now, that's doubly a problem with AI coming around, saying we're going to permit the machine to eliminate the scut work. And, we call it scut work. We call it, sort of learning and paying your dues. The truth is, it's in those first couple of years that you embed the culture, the attention to detail, all of those kinds of tools that you use for the rest of your life. And if the kids think that they're going to skip over that, then we're going to have a whole nother set of problems about a kid walking in and saying, I want to go right into management. And, this is part of the fantasy that these colleges teach these kids. I mean, they just, our colleges, and especially the top 30 or 40 colleges in this country, are just not preparing these kids for the real world that they're going to be entering in any way, shape, or form. And as you said before, they're
If the universities and colleges are, just as an umbrella term, blocked by this idea that you, as a teacher, as a professor, you get that golden ticket. And
yeah,
that golden ticket is called what?
yeah, it's a diploma, I guess.
Well, not for the kids, for the professors. What does every
Oh,
professor
tenure.
work?
It's called, oh no, it's tenure.
You
Yeah,
get tenure. You get tenure. Are all these schools so tenure locked and blocked that
absolutely.
so what is
Absolutely.
it? So this is a trillions dollars
Yeah.
industry
Yeah.
worldwide. It's not an American thing. What's going to happen to these schools in a generation?
Well, the worst thing, I mean, in addition to tenure, the second thing is that I'd say 90% of the money that's coming into these schools, not from tuition, but from sponsors and donors, is all bricks and mortar. Everybody wants their name on a building, okay? And with a modest couple of exceptions, that's the worst possible thing you could be doing these days because so much of this, I mean, we learned this in COVID, so much of learning can be virtualized that the thought that all of a sudden you've got 40 buildings. This is, by the way, I think any college under 10,000 students won't exist in 5 years because the infrastructure
How about
costs.
that for a statement?
Yeah, because the infrastructure costs are going to blow these places up. They just can't possibly keep up with the bricks and mortar costs when their students are saying, my granddaughters are at Northwestern now. They don't have textbooks. They don't go to the store and buy
Right,
books.
right.
It's all digital, right? And it's all on screens and stuff like that. So these schools that are still building out facilities, building out dorms that look like upscale hotels with all the amenities and everything else. I mean, they're dealing with a population that is shrinking so quickly as we become, a bigger and more diverse country that it's going to be elite, and it's going to be the case that your parents are going to sit you down and say, "I'm sending you to Michigan." Not because of what you're going to learn, although they have a good football team, but our basketball team. I'm sending you there for the network. And the truth is, the network is still the singly most important thing that you take away from college. It's the connections that are going to help you traverse and make your way through the business world if that's what you aspire to.
So if you maybe that's the new model, right? The new transition model to whatever exists in 25 years. But if you were to find the new Tribeca flashpoint as a kid, as a parent or whatever, and then transition to the regular school, you cut your debt in half, you network, you learn how to get drunk and get sober and not tell your parents. You learn how to do your own laundry. You learn how to be a grown-up to some extent because you're doing stuff with other people.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the transition step we're going to see.
Well, I think we will see a lot more of these 2-year facilities. As I said, I don't know, in a lot of respects, when I say the companies are going to build them internally, the reason is that that permits the companies to have no restrictions with respect to tenure, no obligations to be regulated by anybody because they're certifying, they're not giving diplomas and stuff like that. They're certifying. Microsoft started this 20 or 30 years ago. Uh, and I think that that's the direction they want to go. They don't want to be told that they have to have, courses in African literature. I
Sure.
mean, what's going on now with the Department of Education trying to invade these schools and dictate curriculum and everything else is so frightening that, again, I think the businesses are just going to say, we're going to opt out of that whole situation. And we're
If you're
just
a
going to find
doctor,
a population.
if you're a doctor or a lawyer or somebody that's going to need that extended education, of course, if you're a lawyer, you're not going to be clerking. You're not going to
Yeah.
come out. You're not going to be sitting in a room looking at case law forever because you'll be able to do it in AI in 10
Yeah.
minutes.
No, I think lawyers are going to be, a declining breed. And especially, I mean, this is totally off point, but the premise of the law was you follow the prior decisions. We now have a Supreme Court that every single week is saying, yeah, we know we said that 2 years ago, but it's a different time. We have a different boss now. So we're going to completely eliminate stuff this is called stare decisis. We're going to completely eliminate any line of logic that would explain and that we
Right.
would adhere to so people could reliably project what was going to be the consequences of their actions. Right now, I mean, I don't know what you teach in terms
The
of
word precedent
constitutional
goes away.
law.
The
Yeah,
core word of a legal education,
absolutely.
precedent, gone.
Absolutely. Gone. So if you're teaching constitutional law these days, I don't know what you say to your students. I honestly don't, because you can't point to a single new line the last couple of years with this court where they haven't just blown something up completely, made a decision that had nothing to do with the precedent, with the law, with really anything, and has sort of underlying it a theory and an approach to try and set things back 10 or 20 years. I mean, they're going to try to kill abortion overall. They're going to try to eliminate and make it illegal nationwide rather than pushing it down to the states, which was the first step. So you got 20 states or so that have said it's illegal. They're going to try and go for the whole enchilada. They're going to try to go for all kinds of voting restrictions. I mean, and when you have these idiots get on for, these maggots get on TV and say, well, you need to show your ID when you go into a restaurant. I mean, this is the
Or a
acting in
grocery
typical,
store. My favorite was
right,
a grocery store, a sitting senator. This is how
right.
unattached he is. You got to show your ID at the grocery store.
I
What
know.
store is that?
I know. Um, it's a skill of shameless lying and stuff that I don't know how they've developed,
Well, and
but
here's how you beat it. And I will not, I won't get on my stump here and do my sermon, but it's all about turnout, boys and girls. And the midterm election turnout is second only to the presidential election, and it's still about 50% of the country, which is such bullshit that we
right.
can't get off our backs, get off our asses, and
For one
go
day,
and vote.
right.
One
For
day. And the
one lousy,
primaries, we just had primaries in Indiana and in Ohio. The primaries are the playoffs. The general election is the Super Bowl. You don't get to the Super Bowl without winning the playoffs.
right.
So don't stand in line in November and say, how did we end up with these two schmucks? We ended up with
Right.
them because you didn't show up for the first one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what's worse is, the lesson that you would take as a politician for the last 10 years, putting aside Trump putting his thumb allegedly on the scale in terms of successfully in Indiana, but putting that aside, the lesson you learn is that the people who win in primaries are the most extreme, the people who could never win in the general, but the people who turn out are the zealots, and they vote for the most extreme candidates, and that's how we end up in exactly the situation you
And that's
described, which
why
is
that's why when Trump threatens to primary somebody, it works as a strategy. You could end that tonight
yeah, yeah,
if you were able to take primary turnout and take it from 20%
yeah.
to 40%, not even half.
Well,
That
listen,
threat would be
I
gone.
mean, look, the fact that we in Chicago elect a mayor with 30% of the population voting is so embarrassing. And look what we ended up with. I mean,
Yeah,
so,
a guy that's got the same approval rate as a bad rash.
right.
Um, Let me talk about the mayor for a second. I know I'm keeping you way too long here, but yeah,
No,
what am
that's
I
okay.
supposed to do? You're the most interesting man in the world.
That's okay.
So you have a you had we both agree on this. The last great mayor of Chicago was Rahm Emanuel.
Yes.
In the cliche that a city's doing well because you see cranes on the skyline is not a cliche. It's in fact a fact. Rahm built things he's never gotten credit for. He spearheaded things that will change life in Chicago forever.
Yep.
I thought he was a hell of a mayor, and I think he'd be a great presidential candidate, though I'm not sure he's going to be going down that path. A lot's going to depend on what J.B. Pritzker does, blah, blah, blah. How did you and Rahm connect? And how did that lead to one of the best tech incubators the world has ever seen in what you did here in Chicago?
Well, my connection to Ram goes back to when he was probably even before he was a congressman, in the early days. I mean, I've known him for almost our whole adult lives, as I have with JB. Uh, and early on, we talked about the fact that Chicago needed to put itself on the map on an international basis. And there were two possibilities. It's interesting because I think we've seen them both come to pass. One was tech and one was logistics. Nobody understands how central Illinois and Chicago is to the logistics of the entire country. And so lately we've spawned four or five, fabulous logistics companies from, the same sort of upbringing that 1871 created companies like Cameo and Spot Hero, which just sold for $600 million, and any number of companies that have come out of 1871.
And those all came out of the merchandise market.
Yeah, yeah, all came out of the Mart. The 1871 would not have existed but for JB because the Mart was run by some guys from New York who were, this was after the Kennedys sold it, who were, really complete assholes. And
Not
they
the
were
Kennedys, the guys that sold them.
right, and they were happy to give us space for $1 trillion. And JB, to his credit, guaranteed the lease, so we got a reasonable lease for a period of time to build it. And then Ron became the global advocate for it. He would introduce companies to opportunities. We went all over the world. We went to Dubai, we went to Israel, we went to literally probably 20 different cities over the course of the 4 or 5 years where we were ranked #1 in the world as an incubator. And we established that that was an important part of any city. And now these exist in every city virtually. Uh, but he put his head down and he went to work, as did, by the way, Pat Quinn. I mean, I give Pat Quinn credit too.
Right.
These guys understood that business is the lifeblood of cities, and you have to take care of the CBD, the Central Business District, if you're going to be successful. Something that Brandon doesn't understand at all. Brandon is like, I'm going to take care of the South Side neighborhoods, and that's going to keep me in. And sad but true, if he has 14% of the population, he'll probably be at least a candidate in a re-election, process, which is just so depressing. I mean, it's hard to believe.
We talk about, you're baseball fans. In baseball, you can fail 7 out of 10 times and you'll be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I never thought I would live to see the day where you could fail 9 out of 10 times and have a shot at being reelected.
Yeah. Well, because we have a block. We have a block called the Teachers Union. Plus, they have the ability.
The Teachers Union is, my words, not yours. The Teachers Union is the new Chicago outfit.
Yeah.
They run the city in a way that people don't even understand.
Well, and people also don't understand. They think of them as teachers. What killed Paul Vallis was that on election day they turned out the 18-year-olds from the schools. They marched these kids down in droves to the schools, from the school to the polls. So
these are the politically active kids that told them to vote for. And the other thing is, and I'll get off this, but the reverse racism of it. And I've said this to people all the time. I go, if you say, I'm only going to take care of black people because I don't like white people,
right.
You're a racist.
Right, right.
I mean, it's an absolute racist statement to make. And this city gets any great city in this country
Yeah.
built to
Well,
fight
we're
that.
gonna see. I mean, we're gonna see what happens. I don't, I feel like you go up and down Michigan Avenue and it's depressing. And I don't know what's going to improve it. I mean, we've seen, Lou Raisin and I and a bunch of people have been working on this thing called the Cultural Stadium, which is, instead of spending $1 billion building another, bricks and mortar thing, let's take it to improve the arts and everything that's going on in the downtown area. Let's reactivate the alleys. Let's build floating farmers markets on barges down the river.
Yeah, let
Uh,
people know
you
about
know,
the riverfront. The
yeah,
river walk is tremendous, and people don't even go down to it.
they don't know about it. So, there's an energy and there's an interest in doing this cultural development across the whole 9 yards and taking the bottom part of LaSalle Street and maybe it's turned into residential, but it'll never be residential if there's no life down there, if there's no
Right.
activity. So, uh, but I mean, I think basically right now people are holding their breath and hoping that Brandon goes away and that we get a decent mayor.
You know, my friend Congressman Quigley is one of the most interesting people in Congress in that he is more than willing to talk to any Republican about getting
Yeah,
the right thing done.
right.
He doesn't
Yeah.
care if you call him a moderate, a Democrat, whatever the case may be.
Oh, and and look, he's put his toe in the water 47 times. I mean, I wish he would really step up and say, I'm going for it. I think personally it'll be Alexei, but we've got 6 or 7 candidates already. And the worst thing they could do, the Dems could do, is end up distributing it into a circular firing squad and then having Brandon, you know, control enough of a block that he gets into at least a rerun.
It's a scary proposition at best. And there's nothing wrong with Alexei. He's a fine guy. He's done a nice job with what he's done with the Secretary of State's office. But I said to him off the air in one of his first interviews, I said, "Well, where's this going?" And he goes, "No, I just want to, hey, give me a break. You're not going in it to help little old ladies be able to get their licenses renewed, more efficiently." He looks like a politician. He's a smart guy, and he probably can get over. But it's a shame that our friend Congressman Quigley, and it's what you said is absolutely true. You got to jump in, but he is a soft-spoken guy who's willing to make deals, who
Yeah.
loves the city and knows the city inside out. That should be good enough.
Listen, I think that you could put together a dream team if you took some of these candidates and got them into a room and said, you can be number one, but you'll be number two and you'll be number three. I think Susana Mendoza knows more about finance than all these guys combined and has saved the state tons of money and reduced the interest cost and all these things. I think that, Alexei, after 30 years of Jesse, and seeing the technology in the Secretary of State's office being literally a joke, he's fixing that.
Yep.
I wish
And
he
he's done
would
a nice
stay.
job.
I wish he would stay there another term because he's also the chief librarian for the state. And Illinois has 6,400 libraries, and they're all going to waste. And they could be safe after school spaces. They could be turned into digital workshops. There's a huge set of opportunities there, and that's under his domain too. Uh, but and Quigley, you've got a couple of these other guys. I don't know. I mean, I just think we need to get some strong leadership. They need to be collaborative, because it's funny in Washington. I'm surprised Quigley hasn't jumped off of a building because the idea of comedy with a T, the idea of working across the aisle, all this
Correct.
stuff, totally gone. I mean, totally gone. And especially now with this redistricting and the gerrymandering, more and more of these representatives are going to be 100% lunatics. They'll be black or white, whatever it is. And there's going to be like no upside, no upside. This Congress, I think, passed fewer pieces of legislation than any in the last 50 or 100 years. And they're proud of that. They don't, and the work that they've done, I mean, if you see what's on the roll while they're trying to stave off all of the reasonable things, the war powers thing and some
Sure.
of these other things, I mean, they're passing things like, crazy approvals of, park space in Arizona or something. I mean, just nutty stuff. Took them a year and
Yeah,
a
we'll
half to
just
put.
have to get on C-SPAN for 5 minutes
Yeah,
and throw it into a brochure to maybe make a little money.
yeah, yeah,
On the other end. It's funny because the stuff that they would talk about to you or to me and other people off the record, they now say all that stuff out loud.
I
They don't
know.
even try to hide the fact that they're there to stay there. Not there
Yeah.
to do the job, they're there to
Yeah.
stay there.
Well, I mean, a congressman told me, not Rahm, but other congressmen have told me the day you start, you have to raise basically $10,000 a day in order to win, a year and a half later, because these 2-year terms are ridiculous in that sense. They're constantly fundraising. They're constantly focused on just as you say, they're constantly focused on trying to get reelected. And I think that that system is broken in so many respects, but the worst part is how flagrant and out front they are about what's going on.
Outrageous. And
Yeah.
and again, the only way you can get it done is to show up, which is a good segue. And I promise I'll let you go because you're
All
gonna have
right.
to come back and do the history of Howard because we got a lot to talk about still.
You should
Um,
just talk to my selfie.
you know what? Well done. Nice segue because I'm tying up that loose end right now. I really hope you'll go to Selfie because I didn't know exactly how cool it could be until I started to get involved, and it's been a particularly busy time to get involved. But there's no pressure to do it all in one day or to do it all in a month.
Right.
It builds and understands as you do, and this is really a cool development, and it's not going to cost you anything to look at it.
Yeah, I have to say the thing that this is a hyper technical thing, but when the LLMs started, each time you interrogated one of these large language models, you were talking to a different chip, a different mechanical piece of memory. And as a result, it had no ability to retain prior conversations. Now, if you talk to Claude and you say, 2 months ago, we were talking about raspberries, right there, right there. And that's to your point that you do this at your time, at your speed, and at your convenience, but it's additive. Every step you take builds something. And again, this is something that's important to teach kids too, that you have to build. You have to build a reputation, you have to build a business, you have to build a home, all these kinds of things. So for them to invest their time instead of playing some stupid ass game in building their own presence digitally, I think is a really powerful thing. I think it teaches them discipline.
There's no question. I was just thinking too. I got 12,000 shows that I've done over the past several decades. Throw those on the Selfie this afternoon.
I'm all right. Anyway, thank
All
you for
right,
having
selfie. Oh,
me.
not so wild about that idea. Selfie.co, kids. The great Howard
CO.
Tullman. He will be back to discuss more of this because, again, we're just scratching the surface. Tell him where you write a column every month.
Every week. Every
Every
week.
week, I said month, yeah.
I've written 650 columns for Inc. magazine, so Inc.com. I publish on Tuesday mornings. This week I dumped on IKEA for farming out their delivery customer service. They don't seem to understand that the final point in your customer satisfaction and connection is the delivery. And if it's some mope who works for Trash Rabbit, you're probably not reinforcing your brand.
I hope
But
you
what I'm
ended up
really,
with what's next? The meatballs? Are
yes.
those going as well?
Well, I'll tell you what I'm excited about is I'm working on a story now, two interesting stories. One, a woman who takes intercepts returns, going back to Amazon, going back to all these companies, and delivers them to charities. So
That's
all this stuff
cool.
that literally these sellers, Chewy, if Chewy sends you something that's wrong, dog food or whatever, it's perfectly fine. They won't even take it back. So it goes into the trash or the landfill. So this woman is doing this multi-million dollar thing already after just a couple of years of directing all these important assets to charities that can use them for their people. And then
Great
the
idea.
second the second part of the story that's equally interesting is this woman has figured out that your kids outgrow their clothes so quickly in the first 5 or 6 years that there's a whole opportunity, a resale opportunity for all of this kids stuff that's I mean it's secondhand, but it's perfectly in decent shape. And so she's getting all those returns from the manufacturers and all the sort of stuff that they don't sell and using that to provide for, sort of needy families and stuff like that. So interesting stuff.
Very much
Always,
so. And again, that's weekly in ink at ink.com. I don't know when you sleep. Maybe you
All
don't. But whatever the case may be.
Thank you.
We'll wrap this up right after I give Woody a chance to say a few more things, because he's got important things to say. Woody from Woody Buick in Naperville and Gurnee.
Woody here, Woody Buick GMC, Naperville and Gurnee, Chicagoland's largest selection of the hot new Buick, Envista, and Encore GX. Search Woody Buick GMC, Naperville and Gurnee, and see for yourself. Hope to see you soon, Woody. Buick, exceptional by design.
Thank you, Ross Cochran. Ross produces this. Make sure you see it on YouTube, and please subscribe there, and subscribe for 50 or 60 of your friends. And also, wherever you listen to the podcast, if you're not watching us on YouTube, follow, share, all that good stuff. Review, rate, send money, wherever you get your podcasts. And I thank you for the support, as always. Hope you liked Howard Tullman. And check out @selfie.com and get yourself a selfie. It's a cool thing. And I love his idea for older folks being able to tell their life story. That's just one of the many applications from this thing. All right. Thank you, Ross, as I said, and thank you to you. Don't forget about our apt phrase. The apt phrase is, "Hey, Steve, are those new sunglasses?" Put that in an email to me at thecochranshow@gmail.com with your mailing address, and while supplies last, I will send out as many as I can. Apt gift cards. And don't forget, Apt is one of our sponsors, the sponsor, as a matter of fact, for the Chicago Comedy Legends stand-up comedy show, June 11th at the Bolingbrook Golf Club. Mike Toomey from Channel 9, the hilarious Tim Becker, and the hilarious Steve Cochran, all on stage making you laugh that night. 7 o'clock is showtime. In the show notes for this podcast, you will see the poster for the show and a clickable link. You can either download, or you could click on the clickable link, or you could scan the QR code. Both are going to take you to the ticketing page, and you can get tickets through May 11th. Not sure when you're watching this or seeing it or hearing it, but through May. You know what? Let's extend that. Let's go through May 15th. Through May 15th. Hopefully you're watching before then. You can save $5 on every ticket. All right, that's it for now. I thank you for listening. My name is Steve Cochran. See you on stage. See you here. See you soon. This is Live from my office.
Woody here. Why Woody, you ask? Chicagoland's top-selling Buick GMC dealer with the largest Buick GMC inventory in stock. Over 1,000 of the hot new Buick and GMCs to choose from. Search Woody Buick GMC, Naperville and Gurnee, and see for yourself. Easy as 1, 2, 3. Click, shop, and drive home today. No shortage at Woody Buick GMC, Naperville and Gurnee. Woody needs your trade-in today. Hurry for best selection at year-end. Hope to see you soon, Woody. GMC, we are professional grade.